When did you last watch a grown adult sob over a volleyball and find yourself doing exactly the same thing? Castaway hit theaters in December of 2000 and pulled off something that should not be possible. It made a $90 million survival film with almost no dialogue, no villain, and one man alone on a beach for an hour straight, and audiences couldn't look away. Tom Hanks played Chuck Noland, a FedEx systems analyst, so obsessed with being on time that he once left a Christmas dinner in the middle of dessert because Malaysia needed him. Helen Hunt played Kelly, the woman he was fighting to get back to, in about 15 minutes of total screen time, which somehow felt like enough. Robert Zemeckis directed and made the single boldest creative choice of his career. No music, no company, no relief for the better part of 2 hours. And Wilson, a Wilson Sporting Goods volleyball wearing a painted handprint for a face, delivered a supporting performance that earned its own award category, created specifically because no existing one covered it. Directed by Zemeckis, written by William Broyles Jr., produced with Tom Hanks, $90 million budget, $429.6 million worldwide, a Golden Globe, 2 Oscar nominations, and a production history so genuinely strange it almost makes the movie look easy. Today we're opening the hatch on 15 wild facts you didn't know about Castaway, the true origin of Wilson, the trick Zemeckis used to keep a crew employed through a year-long shutdown, and the one vacation decision that accidentally gave birth to Lost. Hit like and subscribe for weekly deep dives into the movies that actually left a mark. Let's get into the countdown with number 15. Number 15. Wilson almost didn't exist. What replaced him was much worse. The first drafts of Castaway had a version of the island loneliness problem. Tom Hanks would be alone for most of the film, with no one to talk to, and no way to externalize what was happening in his head. That's a scriptwriting problem with an obvious solution. Give him someone to talk to. William Broyles Jr.'s early answer was to split Chuck Noland into 2 personalities, good Chuck and bad Chuck. They would argue with each other on the island, one urging survival, one giving in to despair, as a way of dramatizing the internal conflict of a man coming apart under 4 years of isolation. Read that back. Good Chuck and bad Chuck. In the movie that made $429.6 million and earned Tom Hanks a Golden Globe, the idea was scrapped. Analysis of early Broyles drafts confirms it was exactly as clunky as it sounds, a cliché device that turned psychological realism into something closer to a cartoon. Broyles kept working, draft after draft, and somewhere between the research trip to Mexico's Sea of Cortez, where a ball washed up on shore, and the next pass through the script, Wilson appeared. Wilson didn't just replace a bad idea. He replaced a bad idea that was trying to solve the exact same problem Wilson solved. Better, quieter, and with a handprint face drawn in the film's most desperate moment. The most beloved inanimate object in cinema history exists because the first attempt at the same concept was too obvious to survive a rewrite. That's how close this film came to being something else entirely. Number 14. The screenwriter stranded himself on a beach. Here's how Broyles actually found Wilson. Mid-development, stuck on how to make the loneliness feel real rather than theatrical, he arranged to be left alone on an isolated beach in Mexico's Sea of Cortez. No crew, no support. Just him and whatever the Gulf of California decided to provide. He spent a week there, spearing stingrays for food, trying to crack a coconut because he was thirsty, attempting to start a fire by rubbing 2 sticks together, learning to make a knife from a rock. He got lonely fast. And then, one morning, a ball washed up on the shore. He put some seashells on it and started talking to it. Here's the detail nobody gets right. That ball wasn't a volleyball. It was a Wilson-branded soccer ball. The switch to a volleyball happened later, during script development, because a volleyball's flat panel gave Chuck somewhere to draw a face. When Broyles brought the idea to Hanks, he agreed immediately, partly because the ball happened to be a Wilson, the same name as his wife, Rita Wilson. He was going to be away from home for a long time. The name felt right. Tom Hanks confirmed this on the Smartless podcast. He came up with the idea of a volleyball, and he named it Wilson in honor of my beautiful bride. One of those original on-set volleyball props sold at Heritage Auctions in December 2024 for $162,500. Not bad for an idea that washed up on a beach in Mexico. Number 13. FedEx was terrified, and then couldn't believe what happened next. FedEx did not pay for product placement in Castaway. Not $1. Robert Zemeckis confirmed this in multiple interviews, and when the premise was first explained to the company. A FedEx cargo plane crashes into the Pacific, killing everyone on board except one man who spends 4 years alone on a tropical island. Their initial response, according to company records, was that the idea gave them a heart attack. Think about that from a marketing perspective. Your company's plane crashes, your employees die, and the studio is asking to use your actual planes, your actual facilities in Memphis, Los Angeles, and Moscow, your actual uniforms, and your actual CEO to recreate it on screen. FedEx CEO Fred Smith appears as himself in the film's final act, on location at FedEx's real Memphis headquarters, welcoming the survivor home. FedEx said yes to all of it, for free. Because after reading the full script, their managing director for global brand management, Gail Christensen, told the Chicago Tribune, "It's not product placement. We're a character in this movie." After Castaway opened in December 2000, FedEx job applications rose by 30%. A film depicting a catastrophic FedEx crash made people want to work for FedEx. Nobody in brand management has fully explained how that happens. But the CEO cameo is in the film, the company paid nothing for any of it, and job applications still went up by nearly a third. Number 12. The director solved a year-long shutdown by making an entirely different movie. Here was the central problem with Castaway. Tom Hanks needed to gain 50 pounds for the pre-island scenes, film those, then lose all of that weight, plus more, over a real extended period of time while growing his hair and beard out, so the physical gap between the two halves of the film felt earned rather than cosmetic. Real time had to pass, not a makeup trick, actual months. Zemeckis proposed shutting production down for a full year. The studio's reaction, in Zemeckis' own words, was stunned silence. But a year-long shutdown with a full crew still on payroll was financially ruinous. So, Zemeckis did the only sensible thing. He made another movie in the gap. Same crew, same production company, completely different film. What Lies Beneath, a supernatural thriller with Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer, shot while Hanks quietly dropped 55 pounds on the other side of the world. In his own words from the DVD commentary, "The only way I could make this fiscally sound was to do another movie in between, so I could roll the production company onto another film instead of paying people to sit around." What Lies Beneath released 5 months before Castaway. Both films came out in 2000 and were significant commercial successes. Castaway ended up as the third highest grossing film of the year, behind Mission, Impossible 2, and Gladiator. Number 11. Tom Hanks ended up in a hospital in Fiji. Before he left Fiji, Tom Hanks got a small cut on his leg. He was playing a man who'd survived a plane crash into the Pacific. A small cut felt manageable. It wasn't. The wound became seriously infected. It kept spreading without Hanks realizing how bad it had gotten. He finally saw a doctor who, in Hanks's own words from a 2009 BBC radio interview, told him, "What's the matter with you, you idiot? You could have died from this thing." He was taken to a hospital in Fiji and stayed 3 days while doctors treated the wound. Production shut down for 3 weeks. The crew was told Hanks wasn't going back in the water until he recovered. Here's what makes this stick. Chuck Noland injures his leg on the coral reef in the film's first act. It's written into the story. The man playing a crash survivor who injures his leg on a reef actually developed a serious infection from the same kind of environment and spent 3 days in a Fijian hospital while his director waited to find out if the film still had a star. The scene stayed in. Hanks came back. But it was closer than anyone said at the time. Number 10. Wilson had actual written dialogue. Hanks heard it in his head. Hanks carries scenes with a volleyball for roughly an hour. The relationship between Chuck and a deflated ball with a handprint on its face is entirely convincing. Audiences wept when Wilson drifted away. An inanimate volleyball received the Critics' Choice Award for Best Inanimate Object at the 6th Annual Broadcast Critics' Choice Awards, a category created specifically for this film and never awarded again. None of that works without Hanks. But here's the part almost nobody knows. Wilson had lines, Actual written dialogue was included in the script so Hanks could hear Wilson's responses and react naturally on camera. The lines were there to give him something real to work against, a conversational partner on the page, even if that partner was synthetic leather. In a 2020 interview with Graham Bensinger, Hanks described what months alone on that island actually did to him. When Wilson was born, I had dialogue with him, and I heard his dialogue in my head. I did go crazy because I never had a day off. I was never off camera. You just wander into the frame and wander out. That's how we shot the movie. Wilson's lines were cut before the final edit. They exist on one copy of a script somewhere and in whatever Hanks was hearing in his head on that island. That's the performance you watched. Number 9. The theatrical trailer spoiled the ending. Survival films run on one question. Does the protagonist make it? Castaway spends 2 hours and 23 minutes building toward that answer. For that suspense to work, you probably shouldn't tell the audience the answer before they buy a ticket. The theatrical trailer told the audience the answer before they bought a ticket. Not subtly, explicitly. The trailer shows Chuck being updated on everything that happened during his 4 missing years. It shows him returning. It shows the reunion. The ending is in the marketing. When this was raised with Zemeckis, his response was perfect. He compared the decision to McDonald's. The reason McDonald's is a tremendous success is that you don't have any surprises. Tom Hanks was one of the biggest stars on earth in 2000. Audiences needed to know their guy made it through. Uncertainty would keep people home. He was right. Castaway opened at number 1 over Christmas, held that spot for 3 weeks, and set the record for the highest Christmas opening weekend of any film to that point, surpassing Patch Adams. Zemeckis gave away the ending. Audiences came anyway. The man from McDonald's had a point. Number 8. The score is 14 minutes long. It won a Grammy. Alan Silvestri composed the Castaway score. He and Zemeckis had worked together since Back to the Future. For most of Castaway, Zemeckis gave him nothing to score. The decision was deliberate. While Chuck is on the island, the majority of the film, there is no original music, not a note, no strings cueing you how to feel, no score beneath the survival sequences. Just wind, waves, and a man figuring out how to stay alive. Silence used as a tool, not a gap. Silvestri's score begins precisely when Chuck realizes he might actually get off the island, not a second before. In total, his original work across a 143-minute film amounts to approximately 14 minutes of music. Those 14 minutes won the Grammy Award for Best Instrumental Composition at the 2002 ceremony. The most minimal score in modern studio history won one of music's most recognized honors, and the film was simultaneously nominated for an Oscar for Best Sound, sound that, as you'll hear in the next fact, was almost entirely rebuilt in post-production. Castaway kept collecting recognition for the things about it that were at least what they appeared to be. Number 7. Almost 90 minutes of sound had to be rebuilt from scratch. What the production discovered on Maunariki Island in Fiji's Mamanuca archipelago was that shooting on a real uninhabited island comes with one enormous technical problem. The ocean is very loud. Between crashing waves and constant wind, every word of on-location dialogue was completely unusable. All of it. Sound designer Randy Tom, speaking on the film's commentary track, confirmed that virtually all on-island sound had to be recreated in post-production. Nearly 90 minutes of ambient audio, dialogue, and environmental texture, rebuilt in an editing suite. Then Castaway was nominated for an Oscar for Best Sound at the 73rd Academy Awards. Hold on. A film where almost every sound you hear while Hanks is on the island is entirely synthetic, rebuilt after location footage was deemed unusable, received a nomination for the best sound in cinema that year. It lost to Gladiator, but it was nominated, and Maunariki itself is now a tourist destination. Day tours run from across Fiji at roughly $100 to $140 per person. Local operators simply call it the Tom Hanks Island. The most isolated location in the film is now on vacation itineraries. That feels right somehow. Number 6. Chuck Noland tried to end his time on the island early. In the film's third act, Chuck tells his friend Stan what his lowest point on the island actually looked like. He had made a rope. He climbed to the summit. He fashioned a log dummy to test whether the branch could hold the weight. The weight of the log snapped the branch. He walked back down. He had, in his own words, power over nothing. That moment is in Castaway. You just never see it happen. Zemeckis made the deliberate choice to convey this moment only through Chuck's later description of it, told calmly, over ice, back in Memphis, years later. You never watch Chuck reach that summit in real time. You only hear him tell Stan he survived it. The effect is staggering and completely intentional. By the time Chuck describes what happened up there, you've already watched him build a raft and sail into open ocean. You know he made it. And hearing him describe how close he came, in past tense, quietly, with ice in his glass, lands harder than any dramatized version would have. Hanks got a Golden Globe and an Oscar nomination for a performance whose most extreme moment exists only as a memory Chuck is sharing with a friend. That's the film. That's the whole trick of it. Number 5. Survivor launched 7 months before Castaway. Castaway began production in January 1999. The target was Christmas 2000. What nobody anticipated was that during the production shutdown, while Hanks was losing 55 pounds, a network television show would debut about people stranded on a tropical island competing for $1 million. Survivor premiered on CBS on May 31st, 2000, 7 months before Castaway opened. It became the most-watched new show of that summer and launched a franchise still running today. Hanks addressed it directly in Entertainment Weekly. He was spooked by the show's like-minded theme, but insisted we didn't have a trivial film. Good or bad, we always had something that was much more substantial than what is essentially a game show. He was right, but the anxiety was real. A one-man survival film was about to open into a cultural moment saturated with island-stranded entertainment, and nobody knew which version audiences wanted more. Castaway opened at number 1. Survivor kept going. The island was big enough for both, but somebody at ABC had been watching all of this very carefully. He was on vacation in Hawaii. Castaway came on the hotel TV, and he sat down on the beach afterward with a drink and started thinking. Number 4. One ABC executive watched this film on vacation and accidentally invented Lost. In the summer of 2003, Lloyd Braun was chairman of ABC Entertainment. The network had slipped to 4th in the ratings behind NBC, CBS, and Fox. In Hawaii with his family, Braun watched Castaway on the hotel television. He walked down to the beach afterward and, in his own words to Grantland, sat there thinking about one actor and one volleyball, and whether a series lived inside that idea. Then, he said, the notion of Survivor popped into my head. He called the concept Castaway the series, and pitched it at an ABC corporate retreat to roughly 50 executives. Dead silence. One person, drama head Tom Sherman, quietly said he saw it. A writer named Jeffrey Lieber was hired to develop it under the title Nowhere. Braun hated the script and fired him. He turned to J.J. Abrams, who was buried in Alias and reluctant. Abrams brought in Damon Lindelof. They added flashbacks, made the island a mystery, and wrote a 20-page outline in 5 days. Braun called Sherman screaming, "It's ER, it's ER." ABC greenlit a 2-hour pilot without a completed script, nearly $12 million, one of the most expensive pilots in television history at that point. The show was renamed Lost, 6 seasons. It redefined what broadcast television could be. Jeffrey Lieber, the writer Braun fired, still collects annual royalties in what he describes as the low 6 figures for a show he admits he had almost nothing to do with. Number 3. The physical transformation may have cost Hanks his health permanently. Hanks gained 50 pounds in pre-production by simply not exercising, eating freely to play the soft, pre-island version of Chuck Noland. 2 months of filming, then a full year off while he lost 55 pounds, going from 225 down to 170, giving up everything except coffee. He called the whole process a burden in an Entertainment Weekly interview from 2000, and he meant it literally. Years later, at the 2013 London Film Festival promoting Captain Phillips, Hanks revealed he'd been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. When asked about it, he told the Daily Mail, "The gaining and the losing of weight may have had something to do with it, because you eat so much bad food and you don't exercise when you're heavy." He said he'd never do it again, and he hasn't. So, the full physical ledger of Castaway looks like this: 50 pounds gained, 55 pounds lost, a serious infection in Fiji that put him in hospital for 3 days and shut down production for 3 weeks, and a health condition he partly traces to the physical demands of this role. The performance earned him a Golden Globe and an Oscar nomination. He gave the role everything he had. The role took more than he planned to give. Number 2, the full accounting of what this film actually cost. Castaway was nominated for Best Actor at the 73rd Academy Awards. Tom Hanks lost to Russell Crowe for Gladiator. The film was also nominated for Best Sound. That lost to Gladiator 2. Here is the full accounting of what the movie cost. Not the budget, the actual cost. Hanks gained 50 pounds, lost 55, and developed type 2 diabetes he attributes in part to those fluctuations. He was hospitalized in Fiji for 3 days, and production halted for 3 weeks. The director made an entirely separate film to keep the crew employed during the gap. The screenwriter stranded himself in Mexico for a week to find what loneliness actually felt like. The sound team rebuilt nearly 90 minutes of location audio that the ocean made unusable. The composer won a Grammy for 14 minutes of music. The volleyball that washed up on a research beach in the Gulf of California sold at auction for $162,500 in 2024. And the film spawned a television series that ran for 6 seasons and changed what broadcast drama could be. All of it, for a movie about one man, alone, with no villain, no subplot, and a volleyball. The Oscar went to a Gladiator epic. The volleyball went for $162,500. Nobody has ever fully agreed on which one got the better deal. Number 1, Castaway accidentally told the most honest story about time. Chuck Noland at the start of this film is obsessed with time. He measures it in delivery windows and productivity audits. He leaves Christmas dinner early because a FedEx depot needs him. He is, by every metric, winning, and then time stops. 4 years on an island with no clock, no deadline, no calendar. When he comes back, his girlfriend has married someone else. His friends held a funeral. The world moved on without him and filled in all the space he left. What Castaway figured out, and what took 6 years of Hanks, Broyles, and Zemeckis talking to each other to articulate, is that most of us are in some version of that first half. Obsessed with efficiency, with optimizing, with not wasting the minutes. And it takes something catastrophic to show us that none of it was the point. Hanks said in one interview that Chuck learns no great lessons from the island. He doesn't come back transformed or enlightened. He comes back the same man, standing at a crossroads, just with a better sense of what the next step might be. The tide brought lost. It brought a tourist island in Fiji. It brought a volleyball at auction for $162,500. It did not bring the Oscar. Russell Crowe still has that. But it brought something harder to quantify. A film where almost nothing happens made people feel everything. And that, in the end, is probably enough. And there you have it. 15 facts about Castaway that change how you see it. And maybe the strangest thing about all of them is how much of this film happened by accident. A soccer ball that literally washed ashore during a screenwriter's research week and became the most famous volleyball in history. A director who solved a production shutdown by making a haunted house movie with Harrison Ford. A company that let its plane crash on screen for free and watched its job applications rise by 30%. An ABC executive on vacation in Hawaii who ended up accidentally building Lost. Chuck Noland stood at a crossroads in the Texas Panhandle at the end of this film, not knowing which road to take, knowing only that he had to keep moving. Nobody planned for this film to land where it did. They just kept going and figured out the rest. Which one lands hardest? Drop it in the comments and hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Until next time, keep the packages sealed and never leave Wilson behind.